In this video, we're going to talk about the crossover section of the reading STAAR test. This section is where you have two reading passages back to back. Then you have questions about passage 1, questions about passage 2, and questions that are crossover questions that ask you about both passages. The reason that many students struggle with this section of the test is that you're being asked to draw conclusions about similarities and differences that are not directly stated in the text. Instead, you have to draw those conclusions on your own, relying on your prior knowledge, relying on your understanding of the text, and relying on the inferences that you can make as you read. So one strategy that we are going to use on the test to compare the two passages is using a T-chart. And a T-chart is simply that. You draw a capital T and you record information from passage 1 on the left-hand side and passage 2 on the right-hand side. That way you're able to directly compare information and use those inferences, use that knowledge to answer the questions that are about each passage and then the questions that are the crossover questions. So in order to do that in our T-chart, we are going to think about 4 things. These are the most important things to think about as you are reading the text. So first, the M stands for the main idea. What is the main idea of this text? What is it expressing? Second, what is the opinion that is in the text? So they might both have the same kind of main idea, same topic, but maybe they have different opinions expressed in that piece about that topic or about that main idea. So for opinions, you're thinking about how are these texts, the ideas presented by the author, similar or different. Next, the structure of the text. How is the text set up? Are the beginnings and the endings similar? Are they different? Did one text use a compare and contrast while the other text used a problem solution? Maybe both texts were told by using personal anecdotes or personal stories in order to illustrate the opinions of the author. So thinking about the structure of the text. And last, thinking about the tone or the language that is used in the text. What is the attitude that this author is expressing about this opinion or about this main idea? Are these tones similar or are they different? You can also think about mood here. It just didn't fit with our acronym, but it's also an important thing to think about. So what is the tone by the author and what is the mood that it creates for the reader? Specifically, one helpful thing is thinking about, is the language there more positive or is it more negative, so that you can kind of see what that tone is that the author has or what the mood is that they're trying to create. So here's an example of a T-chart with 2 different cartoons. So if you have these cartoons, we would first look at cartoon 1 and complete the chart for cartoon 1. After we finish the first cartoon or the first passage, we can use any information, any notes that we make about cartoon 1 or passage 1. We could go answer all the questions about that passage, and we could go ahead and look at the crossover questions and see if there are any answer choices that we could eliminate. So just looking at the answer choices and what they say about passage 1, we could maybe eliminate some answer choices where those answers are not a correct representation of what we have on our chart and what we read in the text. Then we would look at cartoon 2 or passage 2 if you're reading a text and fill in the second side of our T-chart, thinking about the main idea, the opinion, the structure, and then the tone or the mood that is created by the author. Again, we would then answer our individual questions about passage 2, and then we could look at the crossover questions to make any last necessary answers that we need to make there. Now that we would have both pieces complete, we would be able to compare any questions that ask us about the main idea. We could compare the 2 main ideas. Are they the same? If so, then any answer choices that talk about the main idea being different would have to be wrong. It might ask us about the mood or the tone created by the author. So in this case, we could compare. Do both texts have a similar mood, or are they different? That can help you answer those questions by helping to focus in on the answer choices. By you spending just a tiny amount of time while you're reading to fill in a T-chart and just write down your thoughts really quickly, that could save you time on the questions and help you be able to answer those questions more accurately. So in this case, if we were looking at cartoon 1 and thinking about the main idea that this cartoon expressed, we would record our main idea here, the opinion that we think that this author is providing about that main idea here, the structure, so in this case, what do we see here with our eyes in the image? And then last, what is the tone, the attitude by the author, and what kind of mood does it present to you, the reader? We could then answer our questions. In this case, I have the chart filled in for both of our pieces just to save us a little bit of time for the video. So if we were comparing and answering questions, now we have just one quick sentence in each of these spots to help us be able to answer questions. So here we notice, especially if we're looking at structure, that in one, they're getting married, but the woman looks kind of shocked and is worried about things getting worse, right? She says, for better or worse? You mean things could get worse than they are now? Whereas here, they're smiling, they're hugging, they're holding hands, looking at each other with their body language. They're both smiling and happy and seem committed to making it through each day. So any questions that we have that might ask us about the structure of the text or kind of how the text is set up, we could use this information to help us better answer those questions. So now you're going to do the chart using two texts, using New Directions by Maya Angelou and Speaking of Stories by Julia Alvarez. So first, you will just read New Directions and then record your information for Maya Angelou here. And then the second, after you finish the first passage, you will do the second passage and record your information about Speaking of Stories here on the second side of the T-chart. If you had questions then about these two passages, your crossover questions, you would be able to use your information to help answer those questions.